It was a cold night. Zira ran off, escaping her father's rule. He had hit her, manipulated her, and abused her all her life. But last night, it got out of hand. He had killed her mother after he discovered that she was acting sweet to Zira. Zira couldn't take his bitterness anymore, so she ran away, all alone, because the rest of her father's pride was too scared to stand up against him. She walked for days, thinking about what she was going to do now. And just when she was about to give up, she saw animals in the distance. A new wave of energy ran through her. She made it, she thought. She was now in the Pride Lands. As she walked around, looking at these animals, there was one animal that stuck out to her. She saw a strange lion with a mark across his eye. It was Scar. He acted all nice to her, welcoming her to the Pride Lands. Scar told her he was from the royal family and told her to come with him. He introduced her to Mufasa, who said she had to prove herself if she wanted to stay. Zira saw that the Pride Lands was a good area to live, so she acted nice to get permission to stay. Scar then took her on a tour all over the Pride Lands and got to know her better. He saw it as the perfect chance to get more lions on his side for his bigger plan. But as they got to know each other, Zira noticed something else on his body. Because if you look very closely, you can see he has a strange mark on his arm. When Zira asked him what it was, he explained to her that he was the leader of the Lion Guard, and that he had the gift of the roar of the elders. All the members of the Lion Guard have this mark. He explained to her that the Lion Guard was supposed to protect the Pride Lands. Therefore, he had gotten a special roar to help him with that. He showed her everything he knew about the roar, and Zira was really impressed. Scar told Zira all about his past, how he felt like the unwanted son, and that his brother, Mufasa, always came first. He had always lived in the Pride Lands, but was never truly happy. Because Scar never got the chance to prove that he was also a good potential king, even though he always had the desire to rule. Zira felt sorry for him and instantly felt a deep connection with him. She told him about her past, how she was abused, which had also left her with a mark. Because in a moment of anger, her father had scratched her ear, leaving her with a notch. She spoke about how she had lost the only animal that ever really cared for her, which was her mother. They had both gone through so much with their parents, and now they finally had each other. From that moment on, they became a team and promised to never let each other down. Scar then introduced Zira to his closest hyena friends, Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed. He told her how he had teamed up with the hyenas since the animals in the Pride Lands were on Mufasa's side. Zira was confused because she had always learned that the hyenas were the enemies. So Scar explained to her how he got the hyenas to move over to his side. Back then, he had heard from a vulture that some of the hyenas weren't happy with their queen. Therefore, Scar got the idea to defeat this queen, because that would make all the hyenas that weren't happy with her step over to his side. Scar promised the hyenas plenty of food when he would rule the Pride Lands. But to prove that he could deliver food, he had to give them a taste first. With the help of Shenzi, Banzai, and Ed, he herded all kinds of animals into the Outlands, where the hyenas lived. From that moment on, these 3 hyenas became his closest allies, since they believed in him from the very beginning. The hyenas that didn't want to support their queen anymore had also followed Scar. And that is how I created my hyena army, Scar laughed evilly. Zira was impressed and saw how powerful Scar could be. She began to truly admire him and never left his side again. Zira and Scar became inseparable. They loved to come up with evil plans, what they would have done to their parents if they had each other back then. They started thinking about their future, how they would raise their little cubs and how Scar would be king of the Pride Lands. Their relationship began with friendship, but it slowly grew into something deeper. Time passed, and as they grew older, their plans got more serious. By now, Zira was helping Scar with making plans of defeating his brother Mufasa, because Zira now also thought he was the rightful king, after hearing all the horrible stories about Mufasa that Scar had told her. But the main thing that made Scar believe he was the rightful king was because he had the gift of the roar of the elders. Since he had the most power, he thought he shouldn't have to take orders from some other lion. Therefore, he ordered his guard to help him take down Mufasa. But his guard respected Mufasa and the Pride Lands and refused to help him. Scar got so angry that he destroyed his guard with the roar. But what he didn't know is that you would lose the roar if you use it for evil. Since Scar didn't have the roar anymore, he and Zira had to come up with another plan. They couldn't come up with anything for a while, but then something happened. Because Mufasa had gotten a son, Simba, which meant that if they killed Mufasa now, Simba would become king instead of Scar. They were thinking of new plans now. What if we can use the sun to trick Mufasa? Zira said. That is actually brilliant, Scar said. They knew Mufasa would do anything for Simba. As they were discussing their options and making new plans, something else happened. Because Zira had also gotten pregnant. She wasn't as strong as she normally was right now, and therefore couldn't help Scar in defeating Mufasa at this time. Scar thought it would be best if Zira would go away from the Pride Lands for a while, for her own safety. Scar promised her that when she would come back, he would have taken care of everything, because if he had to take down Mufasa with violence, it wouldn't be a safe place for a pregnant lioness. Therefore, Zira moved to a distant part of the Outlands for a while and gave birth to her son, Nuka. She got help from the hyenas that were on Scar's side, and everything was going well. She told her son all about his father, how he would be king when they returned to their home. She tried to teach him how to pounce and some other basic skills, but Nuka wasn't the strongest cub. From the beginning, he showed signs of weakness, which is why it took Zira longer to return to the Pride Lands than she expected. In the meantime, Scar set his plans into motion. He tricked little Simba, telling him he had a surprise for him. Simba sat on a rock, waiting for his surprise, because Scar had told him not to move until he got back. But there was no surprise. With the help of the hyenas, Scar had sent a herd of wildebeest straight into the canyon where Simba was sitting, with no way out for him. The noises around Simba grew louder and louder. The ground started to shake, and before he knew it, a big herd of wildebeest was running straight at him. He ran as fast as he could, but he couldn't keep up, so he climbed a small branch to get out of the herd's way, but it wouldn't hold him for long. Scar went to get Mufasa, telling him his son needed to be rescued. Eventually, Mufasa got Simba to safety, but when he tried to climb up the canyon to get himself to safety, Scar betrayed him. Instead of helping his brother out, he threw him into the galloping herd. Scar's plan had succeeded. He had killed his own brother. Simba was devastated when he saw his father's body lying lifeless on the ground. He didn't know what to do, but Scar was prepared for this as well, because he knew that Mufasa's death would mean that Simba was the next king. So he had to make him go away as well. He approached sad little Simba and convinced him that his father's death was his fault. He told him to run away and never return. Then he ordered the hyenas to follow Simba and kill him. But what Scar didn't know is that brave little Simba escaped the hyenas and had run away into the desert. When Zira finally returned to the Pride Lands and heard that Scar's plan had succeeded, she was overjoyed. Nuka could finally meet his father, and Zira could be with Scar again. They finally got the justice they were always hoping for. For a while, they were a happy family. But Scar was busy all the time, and Zira only had Nuka. She felt kind of lonely, and therefore they decided to adopt 2 cubs, Vitani and Kovu. Zira and Scar finally had the life they always dreamed of. Scar could already see how strong the little cub Kovu was beginning to look, in comparison to his son Nuka. While Nuka was looking more skinny and sometimes even a little bit sick, Kovu already had great posture. That is why most of the lions sometimes avoided Nuka, since he was looking sick with all those termites crawling over his body. Scar and Zira knew that they needed a strong heir if they wanted to let their legacy continue. Therefore, Scar chose little Kovu as his heir. As the lions and hyenas followed Scar's orders as they lived in his region, Zira found it really important to raise her cubs strong and independent, and since the Pride Lands were getting worse with the days, she decided she wanted to show them real hunting and all the other possible difficulties they might face. Therefore, she decided to take them on a little trip. She took them to the Backlands waterfall to show them how to catch fish. But around this waterfall, a lot of other animals lived as well. Zira taught them how to do things on their own, since she also had to do that. She had been gone for a while, but when she missed Scar, she decided to return to the Pride Lands. But when she returned, she faced a big shock. Simba had returned, and Scar was nowhere to be seen. Even the hyenas were gone. When she heard Simba had taken down Scar, she grew enraged. How could this happen? Scar told her Simba was dead. She angrily told Simba he couldn't be king because Scar had chosen her son, Kovu, to be the king after he would die. Simba tried to explain to her that Scar was never the true king. He wasn't loyal to anyone. He tried to explain to her that he had even tried to set up his closest hyena allies by saying it was all their idea and that they were the real bad guys. But she didn't listen to reason and attacked Simba. She lost, and her family were banned from the Pride Lands. Furious, she left, but this wasn't over. She started to train her son, Kovu, to defeat Simba one day, and filled his mind with evil thoughts. But not only Kovu got an evil mindset because of her, the other lionesses and of course other kids, Nuka and Vitani, also had to listen to her. They lived in dry lands, where it was every lion for themselves, and under harsh conditions. Nuka began to grow really jealous of Kovu. He couldn't understand why he wasn't the heir, since he was the oldest. He couldn't handle how everyone praised Kovu without him even having to do anything for it. Nuka thought he should get all the praise, but Zira wouldn't even give him a chance to prove himself, since she found it really important that Scar's wishes became reality. But Nuka didn't give up. Again and again he tried to prove that he hated Simba enough to do the job of killing him. But it was no use. All that mattered to Zira were Scar's wishes, because he had saved her life and made her feel happy again. So, when the day finally came that Kovu was big enough, she made a new plan. Now, it was time for revenge. She wanted Kovu to act like he wanted to join Simba's pride, and then, when he wouldn't expect it, he had to kill him. For this plan, they needed to use the daughter of Simba, Kiara, as well. Kovu had to become friends with her to be able to join Simba's pride. Therefore, Zira made Nuka and Vitani plant fires around Kiara so that Kovu could save her. Her plan worked well, and Simba let Kovu into their pride. Kovu grew closer with Kiara and eventually started to like her. He couldn't continue with his mother's plan. He knew it wasn't right. But before he had the chance to tell Simba and Kiara about Zira's plan, it was too late. Zira saw Kovu and Simba walking together and knew this was her chance to attack. Kovu tried to help Simba, but once he was swept away, he froze. Simba ran off and climbed the boulders to escape, and Zira ordered Kovu to take him down. But Kovu did nothing. Nuka saw this as a chance to finally prove himself, so he climbed the boulders to grab Simba and even almost had him. But then his foot slipped and he fell down, with boulders falling on top of him. Simba got out and escaped. Nuka's attempts to prove himself became the last thing he ever did, and he ended his circle of life right there. Zira, enraged, she angrily shouted at Kovu, blaming him for his brother's death. In a moment of anger, she reached for his face, leaving Kovu with a scar across his eye. Kovu ran off, escaping his mother and her lionesses. Kovu ran back to Pride Rock to try to explain the situation to Simba, but Simba felt betrayed and didn't believe him anymore. Therefore, Kovu was exiled. Kiara was broken. Simba told her she wasn't allowed to see Kovu again. Kiara ran off, crying, but then she saw a ray of light coming through the cave and found a way out. She secretly went looking for Kovu. Hours had passed by, and it was already getting dark. Just when she was about to give up, she heard a voice behind her. It was Kovu. They were overjoyed to see each other again. Kovu wanted to run off, start their own pride, and escape all the chaos of the Pride Lands. But Kiara knew they had to do something. If they ran off, their prides would be divided forever. Kovu knew she was right, and Zira was probably even more angry at Simba now that Nuka had died. But they didn't know Zira had already set a new plan into motion. After Kovu had run off, Zira gave a speech to her lionesses. She told them that now was the time to attack, because Simba had gotten injured when he escaped their attack from before. Zira was furious about Nuka's death and wouldn't let Simba take anything else from her, so she and her lionesses went to the Pride Lands that same night to attack Simba. The fight went on, and Zira knew no mercy. Just as she was about to face Simba, she heard something. Before she knew it, Kiara and Kovu jumped in between them. Zira told Kovu to move, and that he was even weaker than she thought, but Kovu still chose Kiara's side. Kiara then convinced everyone that there was no need to fight because they were all the same. Everyone made peace except for Zira. She still felt like she had to defeat Simba for Scar and tried to attack him. But Kiara jumped in between and they tumbled down a hill. Zira was hanging above a cliff, and in a moment of mercy, Kiara tried to help her, but Zira refused. She wouldn't betray Scar, and if this was the end of her journey, she knew she would be together with Scar again, and that he would be proud of her. Zira's claws couldn't hold it any longer, and she fell down into the rushing river below, ending her circle of life right there. While all the lions walked back to Pride Rock, Simba had a talk with Kovu. He apologized and said he was wrong and that he belonged here. Kovu told Simba he had wished he would have gotten to their pride long ago. He told them how it was to live with Zira and Scar, how awful it was that everyone in his group was always so selfish, how he had seen some lionesses kill each other for a pound of flesh. Seeing Kiara so happy made him realize Zira had told him so many lies. Simba said it was okay. It was probably even more Scar's fault. Scar had the darkness he couldn't escape, and unfortunately, your mother had a weakness for Scar, Simba said. But it is all fine now. I can't wait what the future will bring for us, Simba said. Yeah, me neither, Kovu said. And they all happily walked back to Pride Rock.